All right, I'm all queued up to go, Shauna, so whenever you're ready.
Okay, and do you have me as a panelist so I can bring people over and stuff? Or, I mean, not as a panelist, but as an organizer?
Yeah, let me make you a co-host. There you go.
All right, awesome. All right. Well, I think, let's see, how many do we need for quorum? And do you know of people that are not coming?
We need 5 for quorum and we have 7. And I know Austin is planning to arrive just a little bit late, so we should have 8 soon. Do we have Kate on the line or anyone in the place of Kate? Okay. All right, so we're just missing Kate and Austin will join shortly.
Okay. All right, let's see here. There we go. All right, so I have the agenda. Hopefully everybody can see my screen and we're good to go. I would say, oh, sorry, I'm just reorganizing my screen. All right, so this is our last meeting for the IRC committee hearings. And hopefully in the 3 hours that we've set out for today or shorter, we will get through the 4 items on our agenda. I will note that the first item, number 12, was something that we tabled back on February 1st. So we'll hear that. Then item 21 or 20 and 21, the committee should have received a revised version today, and a revised version was posted to Denver's website today. Some revisions in that the proponent will walk us through what they changed when we hear those. But hopefully we'll be able to get through all 4 items today. If for some crazy reason we don't, that would be crazy. But in talking to the city and county of Denver, they said that anything that doesn't get heard in all of these published public hearings will go to a committee created by the city and county of Denver. They'll invite the committee that's here first to make sure that you have the opportunity to participate in that, but it just won't be these live, published meetings. It will be something that Denver organizes. But I'm pretty confident we'll get through most of this today, so I'm not too worried about it. With that being said, just a couple things. If you're new to the process, it kind of goes like this. We'll get a brief summary of the proposal that gets called to the floor and the proponent will give a summary. Then we'll go to the public and allow any comments, questions, concerns from the public. Then we'll bring it back and we'll allow the committee to ask questions of the proponent or for the public. We'll take it back out to the public for any kind of rebuttal on anything that they heard. And then we'll bring it back to the committee for a vote and discussion. That being said, if there are no questions about anything, I do want to introduce to you Glenn Mathewson, who is with buildingcodecollege.com, and he is on the NORESCO team, and he is serving as our subject matter expert today for the IRC hearings. So Glenn, did you have a question?
Thank you, Shauna, for the introduction. I just wanted to offer some grace to the proponents of 20 and 21. You mentioned that those were just recently changed, which is kind of shortens the committee's opportunity to review them. And I just want to, again, offer that grace to the proponents. That was my error in combining some documents right at the 11th hour last week to try to get those posted. And that was my oversight. So it wasn't like a last minute change necessarily. So just wanted to clear that up. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. With that, I am going to call the first item to the floor. Again, this is item number 12 that we discussed as a group. Oops, I want to bring up the Word version and so that I make sure we can amend it if we need to. All right. This is an item that was brought to us previously on February 1st, but then we had some discussion and then tabled it for so that we could maybe have some further time to review it. So with that, I'm going to call the proponent of this item, Mr. Sobey, if he's available. Let me see if he's in the, yes, unmute. Should be able to have permission to speak. Let's see if he is brought over here. My screen looks really different, so hopefully. There he is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So, and Glenn, feel free to add. I'll just give you a brief summary of the proposal. We in the last code cycle, Denver adopted the Appendix F. And in the last year and a half, we've had a lot of experience with applicants and issues that have come up with the appendix. And in an attempt to expedite communication and fill in some areas that we felt were unique to Denver, we have provided 6 separate proposals here. There are provisions that address a densification in Denver that's somewhat unique in some ways, especially in Colorado, with the number of basement dig outs from crawl spaces, additions, and other types of conversions of, say, non-habitable spaces into dwelling units. So a number of these proposals, the first one especially deals with how we define when radon control in the Appendix F requirements should be applied in the code. And then there were a number of other cases that came up in the past where we felt like we needed additional information in the appendix to address applicants' requirements that weren't perfectly clear. But the spirit of the proposals is based on ICC ethics and the protection of the public, safety and welfare of the public, creating buildings and communities of responsibility and protection. Many of the much of the proposal language was provided in assistance with some national experts with this particular proposal and reference to EPA research that had been done in mitigation of radon. So we didn't try to do anything that was beyond what was necessary in the code, but we were wanting to be as specific as we could in addressing the science and the research that the EPA had done and other experts in the field for proper dealing with a number of situations that we face in Denver.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Shoei. At this time, I would go out to the public and ask if there's anybody from the public that wishes to speak to this item. I will say in support or opposition to this item, since we have a small public. Anybody wishing to speak on this proposal, item number 12? Okay, committee, I will bring it back to you and ask if you have any questions for the proponent. Michaela?
So I'm looking at A5.01.1, really the applicability section of Appendix AF. I would like to hear from the proponent the reasoning behind utilizing a percentage requirement in item 4 for additions to dwelling units. It currently states 30%, rather than doing a set area square footage requirement. My concerns here are really related to what is equitable for the homeowners here in Denver. So in a 1,000 square foot footprint that adds on 30% would be in a 300 square foot addition. Somebody that has a 2,000 square foot footprint would have to add on a 600 square foot addition for this proposal to go into play. Can you speak to the differences there and the reasoning why a percentage requirement is what's being proposed and how that's equitable and fair for our constituents here in Denver?
Excellent, Michaela. James, do you have a response to that?
Yes. And I'll say that we had faced this issue quite a bit currently. And there had been a number of different proposals for minimum square footage areas. And I had discussed these proposals with 3 national experts, one in the state of Colorado with the State Department of Health and Environment, whose job it is to enforce radon control in the state, and a national expert who came out of Kansas, who trained Denver's inspectors, and then one in Washington, D.C. And initially, there was a lot of discussion about even applying the appendix to additions, period. And they felt that even though they were advocates for radon control, that there wasn't sufficient data, research, or language in the code to justify a given number. And I have to say, I totally in concurrence with Michaela's suggestion or criticism here, and I don't disagree with it. This percentage was a number that was come up with by discussions with other national experts, and it may not be the most appropriate. Maybe there's a better solution, but it does sort of address statistically, even though there's not EPA research data to substantiate this, it does statistically address the effort to control a percentage of radon that may be getting into a dwelling that puts us closer to the EPA's recommended action level, which is 4.0 picocures per liter. They've determined the safe level is much lower than that. It's 1.3. But I think it's worth entertaining a fixed number if that is a proposal. I think there is a good deal of opinion expressed by the national experts that providing an addition with radon control that's small isn't that effective. And so there was an effort to sort of to identify a percentage of area where there might be a threshold where it could be effective. And the attempt always is to be equitable. So that's a good argument. If you have a larger addition, is it still equitable to require a larger percentage of the addition be controlled by radon? As we read through the proposed amendments, one thing that is absolutely clear and has been clear in the research is that if you have an existing radon system, an addition of any size requires that you connect with that existing radon system, that you are not allowed not to have it. So the question is, where you build a new house area or basement area on uncovered pre-existing ground, what is the appropriate number for coverage?
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Any other questions of the proponent? If not, I take it back to the public for rebuttal on anything that you just heard Mr. Sobey say regarding Michaela's question. Any rebuttal? All right, seeing none. Bring it back to the committee for motion and discussion. Michaela?
I'm curious if other committee members have the same concern that I have with item 4 in terms of the 30% requirement rather than proposing a straight square footage requirement. I view that it penalizes homeowners with a smaller house that want to add an addition compared to somebody who may have a larger footprint house.
Okay, thank you. Kate?
I would agree with Michaela, and I think it would be better if we could come up with just if there was just a single number that everyone had to apply to their project, no matter how large or small their house is. It would be great if there was some science behind that. I don't know how you get to that number, but I would agree with Michaela. This doesn't seem the best way to do that.
Okay, thank you. And Casey?
Yeah, same. A number would be probably better. I agree with Michaela about the equity thing. Maybe if we could put it as a foundation footprint more than 200 square feet or 30% of the foundation footprint, or if we don't even need that or 30%, just leave it as a 200 square foot addition. That way, it's no matter how big your house is, if you're adding 200 square feet, you're having to add the radon.
Is that what you're seeing?
Right.
Whichever is larger or smaller?
Casey, I would recommend that we just do a straight square footage requirement, footprint requirement.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe
Right.
leaving off the 30% and just putting 200 square feet.
And I would recommend that we do 300 square feet.
$300. What does everybody think about 300? Is there anybody in opposition? Can you, for the record, give us a reason why 300, you would pick 300 over 200, Michaela?
It was actually in discussions with James Sobey about some of the recommendations from the national experts that he was speaking with had stated that they did believe 200 square feet was too restrictive for additions of this type. So
it seems as though there's this foundation footprint is in here twice. So constructed over previous exposed earth with a foundation footprint more than 300 square feet of the existing dwelling unit? Or does it need to say with a foundation footprint more than 300 square foot of the foundation footprint?
All you need
Mike?
to speak to is the addition footprint. The reason for the footprint being stated the second time is because it's referencing what you're taking the percentage from. But
So
since we're not taking percentage anymore, it could simply just be The
Of the
addition
addition.
footprint is 300 square feet.
So are you saying previously exposed earth with a foundation footprint more than 300 square feet of the addition footprint?
No,
I-
period.
No, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I might, can I
Yeah.
add something?
So,
In Glenn's right, that was added based on the percentage of area so that there was no confusion that you
mhm.
wouldn't take the total area of a 5-story house or, I mean, sorry, a 3-story house, that you actually took the footprint area, which was a relevant area. Since we are going to a square footage number, it's not as relevant. So I would defer to Glenn here, but it may not be as necessary as it was initially. And I will add, we did start with 200 square feet. I feel more comfortable with 300. The percentage, I don't disagree with the comments that have been made about the percentage.
So is it?
So, Shauna,
Can
you can
I-
just put a period at the end of 300 square feet.
But
and
I
the rest-
should, is that more is not necessarily a word that we, is it over or
300 square feet or greater.
300 square feet or greater, or is it over or greater than 300 square feet?
We can clean that nomenclature up when we find consistency in editing the final product.
Okay.
But you wouldn't need anything after 300 square feet. We
Um,
don't need to reference the existing dwelling under this concept.
Okay, Michaela?
I agree with Glenn. Thank you.
Oops, I didn't mean to underline that. All right, so additions to dwelling units without existing radon controls that include living space or storage or utility spaces constructed over previously exposed earth with a foundation footprint greater than 300 square feet. Or something to that effect. All right, any other comments, concerns on the rest of the item, or can I get a motion for as modified? And can I ask you, I mean, I'm not, well, I guess I see Kate has a question. Kate?
Not a question. I was just gonna propose that we approve the whatever.
Yeah, this proposal.
As modified.
That's fine, no worries. So I have a motion for as modified. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion as modified.
Casey? Okay, and now some discussion. I have a question for you. When I read this as modified version of number 4, I am questioning. It says additions to dwelling units without existing radon controls that include living space. That's one thing. Or storage or utility spaces constructed over previously exposed earth with a foundation footprint. So it's 2 different things. Or does the dwelling units with including living space also included in that previously exposed earth over foundation with the 300 square foot limit? I'm trying to make sure that this sentence reads right so that it's either or it's all of it, whichever way you want it to read. But for me right now, it feels like it's additions to dwelling units that include living space. All of those are following condition, or storage and utility spaces constructed over and whatever that's limited to the 300 square feet.
Yeah.
The intent is that every item in the list is applicable to the 300 square feet.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
okay. All right. Well, I just want to make sure that we write it in such a way that it means everything gets the 300 square feet and not the or storage and utility spaces exposed. So, okay. I mean, if nobody else reads it that way, then it could just be the way I'm reading it right now on the fly. So,
Yeah, Shauna, are you recommending that it states living space, storage, and utility spaces? To
well, I'm just wondering how to word it so that it's really clear that it means that 300 square feet, the foundation footprint greater than 300 square feet applies to everything. So additions to dwelling units without existing radon control systems that include living space or storage or utility spaces. I don't know. I mean, like there's constructed, because right now, like that's one sentence that, or constructed over previously exposed earth with a foundation footprint greater than 300 square feet. Right now, only applies to that storage or utility because it comes right after the or without any punctuation.
It's really an and/or situation.
Yeah. So you could say that include living spaces and storage or utility spaces. Well, but that's still constructed over. Well, no, it's and. Nope.
I think the complication with the commas is that we're trying to apply spaces to utility and storage. That's why you don't see the separate comma. So I think you could probably clean it up just by saying that include living space, comma, storage space, comma, or utility spaces constructed over. And just put spaces in there twice. The reason I think it's confusing is because we're trying to not put spaces after both use storage and utility, but perhaps it would be better to do that.
Well, yeah, that's not my concern. My concern is maybe there needs to be a comma after utility spaces or something so that it doesn't say utility spaces constructed over. And so that last sentence only applies to that last phrase only applies to those utility spaces and not the rest. I guess that's my concern. But if we know the intent, I think that we can definitely, if this is the only thing, Glenn and I can put our heads together to see if there's a way to word it so that we meet the intent of the proposal to make sure that that's really what it says. Everything is subject to that foundation footprint greater than 300. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail that right there. I just want to make sure I knew your intent.
Good observation. It's a difficult sentence because of the criteria that it's an addition to dwelling. We're trying to describe the dwelling unit and the addition in one sentence. So certainly something that can be wordsmithed further.
Okay. All right. So knowing your intent, is there any other discussion, Robert?
I just had a question on that number 2. Do we need to include living space, storage space, all those, or can we just say additions to dwelling units with existing radon control systems constructed over previously exposed earth? Do we need all those other words in there?
I believe so. Quite often in basements where it's critical, you have spaces that are not living spaces.
Yeah, but this is an addition to a dwelling unit, right?
That have
So,
existing radon.
Add over exposed earth, you'd want to control the radon because it communicates with the rest of the house.
I think part of the problem with that is the definition of addition. Increase in, well, maybe not. As I say, you wouldn't want to include like a garage addition as part of it.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
but those are accepted.
But the addition
They're exceptions,
definition
right?
speaks to floor
Yeah.
area. So that would speak more to the dwelling unit floor area than the garage area.
Yeah.
There's an exception here for unconditioned and detached garages.
yeah, That's true.
I see what you're saying. So any addition over an existing radon control system, and then exempt out the attached and detached garage, if that's the only thing that wouldn't get it, so that you don't have a laundry list. That's, I think, what he's saying.
Yeah.
If the only thing exempted is a garage, then why do we need a laundry list if we put the exemption down here? I don't know what else would be exempt. Good question. Did you, Robert, want to leave it? You want to propose an amendment?
I mean, I'm okay either way. I'm coming from the inspector side.
Mm-hmm.
Fewer words, the better.
I agree. However, I think there are situations we face with reviews where this definition would be helpful.
Well, right now we have just a motion for as modified to meet the intent of number 4, that we might have to wordsmith a little, but other than that, I don't have any other further modifications. Are we good? Would you like some more time to discuss? Do you want, or can we call the question? All right, seeing no other discussion, I'm going to go ahead and call the question. The item on the floor, item number 12, has been moved and seconded for as modified, with the wording or something similar in item number 4 to meet the intent that the 300 square feet applies to everything. All of those in favor of as modified, please raise your hands. All right, I'm seeing 8, and I think that that's all that we have, but I'll just go ahead and go through the motions. All those opposed? Oh, people are you raising your hand again? Because we only have 8. Or we only have
9 actually now.
9.
Sean.
Oh, okay. All right.
No.
All right. All opposed should be raising your hand right now. Opposed. Okay, 1. And then all of those that are abstaining. That's it. All right. Item number 12 passes as modified with a vote of 8 to 1 to 0. I'm going to, I'll send you that modification shortly, Erica. All right, that brings us to item number 20. I'm going to pull up item number 20 as it was presented today, as it was modified today. So that is Michaela. Michaela, would you like to speak to or give at least a summary of item number 20 and maybe discuss your changes that you made today versus the one that we had on file?
Sounds great. So this proposal takes our existing scope provisions and revises them to provide clarity on which IRC uses can be constructed in IRC structures. Many people who are used to using the IRC are familiar with that it applies to 1 and 2 family structures and townhouses. Then in the scope provisions, it outlines additional uses typically found occupancies in the IBC. Our existing code has allowed congregate living, lodging houses, live work units, care facilities in IRC structures. So this proposal really clarifies what each of those uses are, to limit the number of questions that we get from customers, and also provide us as reviewers in the city with clarity on how the IRC applies to these different uses. It further clarifies that which uses are allowed in which structure types, breaks it down by structure type to be very, very clear, and then outlines what is allowed in accessory structures. In addition to this, we clarify the Denver's practice with issuances of certificate of occupancy. We issue a certificate of occupancy when it's a change between one of these uses. We do not issue a certificate of occupancy for an addition. So this very much just clarifies that item. The current amendments to the scope provisions have our, outlines some sprinkler requirements for a few of these uses. We took out the scope provisions and moved it to the sprinkler section. So that's a little bit further down. But before I get there, each use is defined now. So we now have a definition for congregate living facility, live work unit, care facility. We're bringing in definitions from the IBC and amending those ever so slightly so that they work for IRC structures. So really removing language referencing sleeping units and referring more to dwelling units, really defining what care is. So bringing custodial care, medical care into the IRC. We are also bringing in our definition from the Denver zoning code related to what is a household. So we no longer have this question of, is this a one family dwelling unit or is this a congregate living facility? We're really trying to make that distinction so there are no longer questions about it. The household definition is exactly how it's defined in terms of numbers and some of the straight language from the Denver zoning code, and outlining that one household is allowed per dwelling unit. Moving on. So again, sprinkler requirements are just being moved from the scope provisions. And then finally, I'm providing the additional references from other codes that have to be updated as part of this proposal. So we will have to update some of the references in the IBC related to the use requirements. And then also update, we're removing some of the language that was input into the IEBC under chapter 10, removing that completely, and that information now is going into the IRC where it belongs. The intent of this code proposal is really to clarify which uses are allowed in each structure type in the IRC, keeping and maintaining our requirements related to sprinklers for each of those uses, and rewording it. Also clarifying where certificate of occupancy is required. This is really a necessary proposal. It aligns our building code with our zoning code, clarifies some of these terms that we get constant questions on. And this is coming up more because we're seeing more smaller care facilities, congregate living facilities, and 1 and 2 family dwelling structures in the city and county of Denver.
Thank you, Michaela. Erica, question. If this passes, will it go? I mean, I know that the IBC and IEBC hearings are over, but they still have maybe a proposal or two to work on. So will this go in front of them as well? Because what if it does, what if they don't agree with it? Then it would just say everything in the IRC stays, but the IBC doesn't if they disagree with that.
Right, so there are still a few proposals on the IBC, IEBC side that are going to be moving to offline hearings that Denver is still working out the details of. So if this does pass, then we would bring it to them as well, but.
Okay.
Yep.
I just want to note that as we move forward, that this is one we might have to flag if it passes. All right, at this time, I'm going to take it to the public and ask if there's anybody in the public that wishes to speak to item number 20 as presented here. Anybody from the public? Anybody at all? Okay, no, and then I will bring it back to the committee. Do you have any questions of Michaela? Committee. Mark?
So I see the R31 3.1 is in red and struck out, but then it's also in black. Is it removed or is it included or revised?
Oh, right here, it's R313 is in red, but then it shows up again in black.
So great question. What is shown as red and strike through, that is current language to be deleted and replaced with the language below it that is in black and underlined.
So it wasn't the same. So if you see townhouse automatic sprinkler system had just this sentence, and now it has this sentence plus the standard. And so the sentence plus the standard. Anything else?
Just want to add for the committee that the 2021 IRC changed. So the baseline code requires the fire sprinklers in habitable attics when they're a story above grade plane, above the third story. So that had previously been an amendment to the Denver code that is really no longer an amendment. It's now part of the baseline code. So this just helps to clarify that in a second location, but I just want to make sure you understood that it's going kind of from being an amendment to just now matching the model code. Thank you.
You, Glenn? All right, any other questions from the committee? Really haven't had much to rebut, so I will ask if there's a motion that somebody would like to make if there's no other discussion. And can you real quick, Michaela, is it the stuff that's in red that was changed today versus what was posted yesterday? I mean, that got posted today.
Right, so I'd say the last half of this proposal was missing.
Oh, gotcha.
Or
Okay.
the code language. I can't remember exactly where it cut off from
Okay.
what was posted, but
Okay.
I know that items related to fire sprinklers were not previously in this proposal.
Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you. Just in case the public
Yeah.
has a different version and they didn't download today's version.
The previous proposal ended at section R101.2.4. I failed to notice the remaining part when I was combining the documents. So everything below permitted uses and accessory structures, yes, everything below there was in the original proposal by the proponent. It just didn't get combined into the formal document.
Thank you very much. All right, Kate.
I make a motion to approve this change to the code
As submitted.
as submitted.
Okay. Is there a second? Casey? Okay. All right. It's been moved in second to approve item number 20 as seen here as submitted without any modification. Is there any further discussion? No discussion? All right, seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of item number 20 as submitted and seen before you, please raise your hand. Okay, I see 6. All opposed? One. And one moment here, and all abstaining. There must be some abstention. Oh, are we back to? All right, well, unanimous anyway. So item number 20 has been approved as submitted with a vote of 6 to 1 to 0. Not sure why we're off on that vote. All right, I'm going to lower that one. That brings us to item number 21, also another one that was changed today and submitted. So I am going to ask Michaela to give us a rundown of item number 21.
Let me just quickly clarify. It's everything starting with section AJ 106 for alterations. That's what was accidentally left out of what was posted previously. So from that point on is what you are seeing now.
Just
Down here, right here.
in
Yes,
here.
starting there.
Okay. And Erica, were you trying?
Committee members, so we're at 8.
What's that? You cut out there, Erica.
We lost 1 committee member, so we are at 8.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. All right. Michaela.
So this proposal, we are proposing to draft our own City and County of Denver Appendix AJ to be applicable to existing buildings. And this is outlining all of the IRC regulations related to repairs, alterations, additions, change of occupancy, relocations, and then historic structures in the IRC. You'll find in the initial scope provision chapters that we have essentially a section for each type of existing building, either repair, alteration, addition, relocation, or change in occupancy. Under each of those, we have the regulations that apply. In Denver, we find that it is necessary to draft our own version of essentially an Appendix AJ or an IEBC related to IRC structures, because as drafted, the International Codes Appendix AJ does not address all of the scenarios that we needed to address here in Denver. For example, it doesn't have regulations related to change in occupancy, which we see a lot of here in Denver, or additions or relocations. And similarly, it is extremely difficult for our applicants to utilize the International Existing Building Code to apply to IRC structures. The reason why is because once you go into the IEBC, specific code provisions then take you back and you have to comply with the IPC. Here in Denver, we find and believe strongly in that an applicant should be able to open the IRC and design and construct a structure and have all the regulations they need to apply to 1 and 2 family structures and townhouses. This is a very large proposal. I understand the committee has not had the opportunity to review about half of it. I'm happy to go over it a little bit more, or if the committee chooses to request it be tabled and be heard at a separate meeting. That being said, the regulations outlined for each section, it's set up to be similar to the work area compliance method that is presented in Appendix AJ, and also it's one of the methods of compliance in the IUBC. We believe that this is the most straightforward path for our applicants, that they can, if they have a repair, they can go straight to the repair section and know all of the regulations that apply. We also have a section that applies to all alterations, additions, repairs, changes to occupancy. So the regulations as drafted, the majority of them are coming either from Appendix AJ or from the IEBC. So really taking what has been vetted by our international committees, but trying to bring it in and into a format and consolidate as these are the regulations that just apply to IRC structures. One of the items of note here is we also had our historic preservation team or landmark team work on, it's the last section, AJ 110, and draft a section there outlining the requirements and a building report, historic building report that would be required when a historic structure can't come fully into compliance. So it's a very important section that's been vetted within our teams here at Denver. Happy to answer any questions that I could continue on, but.
I muted myself. We'll go to the public and ask if there's anybody from the public who would like to speak on this proposal. It looks like we do. Jennifer Capetto, I'm guessing. Jennifer?
Yep, hello. My name is Jen Capetto. I manage the landmark preservation team for the city and county of Denver. And I worked with Michaela and one of her colleagues, previous colleagues, on this code amendment so that we could allow greater flexibility for historic buildings and existing buildings to reduce the amount of historic materials that have to go into a landfill to increase the sustainability of existing building materials and make sure that they are still code compliant, but also are being preserved. So this is very important to us in the preservation community, but it also, we feel like this will help property owners make their projects more successful and more affordable and more sustainable.
Excellent, thank you, Jen. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Mr. Sobey?
I would just like to endorse the acute need for this type of document. As a person who is involved with residential permit submittals, we have so many cases of applications that do not have substantial language to communicate with applicants in Denver. Again, as mentioned before, Denver has a somewhat unique situation where we see a lot of historic buildings. We see a lot of change of occupancies and different uses than you would see with just a straightforward new construction in the IRC. And we haven't in the past adopted the Appendix J. And I just would like to endorse, without debating all the detail in the proposal, the real need for such a document.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sobey. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? No? All right, seeing none, we'll come back to the panel or to the committee. Committee, would you have some questions of the proponents? Paul?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's a possibility we could, right at this point, maybe take a 10 or 15-minute break just to read through the additional pieces that were supplied to us. Because I'm trying to read through the additional pieces and listen in the background, and it's getting very confusing to going through it. I'd like to just read through each line as best we can. Is there a possibility to do that?
Sure. We could do that. We could take a 10-minute break. I could put the clock up and we could take a 10-minute break and come back. And real quick, let me take a couple more questions. I see Robert has his hand up.
Yeah, I just have a question on change of use where it lists minimum requirement for handrails. It notes 3 or more risers instead of 4.
Can you give me a section?
Yeah, it's 108.811.
Okay.
It has 3 or more risers there, but if you build something new, it's 4 or more.
Okay.
Curious why.
All right, Michaela? He's questioning right here. She's going to look that up during our 10-minute break and get a
I was gonna
question.
say, yes, thank you.
So, all right, I think that this is a great time for us to take a 10-minute break and come back. If you are from the public and you don't have the proposal, you can go to Denver's website and download the proposal here under the reviewed proposed amendments and just click on the IRC or review the proposed amendments, click on the IRC and it's in there. It is item number 21 right here, IRC 1027. That's the proposal that we're discussing right now. So with that, I'm going to put up a 10-minute clock and we will come back in 10 minutes. As soon as I find that clock, here we go. And we're going to start it now and come back in 10 minutes. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna join my group here in just a second. Can you guys hear me, or do you hear all of this background on another meeting?
We just hear you.
Okay, perfect. I'm hearing two meetings. Okay, I guess I would start by asking Michaela if she would answer the one question about the 3 or more risers real quick.
Yep, I can state that that language was taken from the IEDC, but I agree with Robert, it should be 4. That's the requirement in the IRC. And highlights an exact reason why this proposal is needed for IRC structures and why IEDC doesn't necessarily work for IRC structures.
All right, so is there, does the committee have any questions then for Michaela now that maybe you've had a little bit of time? I mean, I know 10 minutes isn't a ton of time, but if you guys think that you want to postpone this and come back, then we'll do that. But if you think that you have enough to move forward, we'll do that also. So I'm going to look for the committee on any discussion or question. Anybody from the committee wanting to talk? There we go. Finally got those voices out of my head. Sorry. All right. Anybody from the committee? I need either a motion or some discussion on, do you want to keep this going? Do you need more time? Kate, I see a hand raised, and then Casey.
I just, I would make a motion to support this, but I would like first that we changed it to say the 4 or more risers so that we're in compliance with what the IRC.
In Shauna, that will have to be made in a few different sections.
I'm sorry, in a few sections, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So
No worries. We can find those locations. I can do a search for 3 or more and get those locations. So I have a motion for as modified to change to 4 or more risers in those required locations. Is there a second? Casey, is that a yes for a second?
Yeah, I second it.
Okay. All right, and some discussion on that. I see Casey and then Robert.
Oh,
Casey,
no,
did you have-
I didn't have a discussion. I was just making
No.
a second.
Okay. All right, perfect. Robert?
Yeah, I think I got one more on 104.84 for the window opening control devices.
104.84.
Actually, 104.831 as well.
831, okay.
So control devices. Sorry, I lost my place. I was jumping all over the place here.
That's okay.
Oh, no, I lost it. Oh, maybe it's number 2 above that, where a replacement window is not part of a change of occupancy. Then we need to use the control devices. So what about when we do a change of occupancy? Because in 108.83, it doesn't list it there that I can find.
Oh, because change of occupancy. Well, okay, so regardless of the category of work, if you have an existing window, including the sash and the portion is replaced, it would have to comply with the requirements of 8.1 through 8.4. And then you accept if the replacement window is not a change of occupancy. I don't think that period. Window.
To comply with base code.
What's that, Michaela?
It would have to comply with the base code.
Okay.
Okay, so that's how we're getting that. Okay, that makes sense. And then 106.821 also has the 3 risers.
Okay. 106. Okay. Anything else?
That's about as far as I got.
Okay, I know it's a little bit, it's a lot of proposal there. Thank you for trying to take the time to do that. Anybody else? Paul, did you feel okay with, I mean, 10 minutes was, went by pretty fast. You okay with that? Would you guys, are you guys, I want you guys to be comfortable if you feel like you would rather, you know, postpone it and let the, whatever committee that Denver creates hear this. We can do that if you guys are okay moving forward. We can do
I
that
also
as
want to
well.
point out that we have an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
We only have one proposal left, so, you know, taking a little bit more time, I think would also be,
Yeah, in order.
oh, whatever the committee feels is right.
Yeah, for sure. Right now, we have a motion on the floor for as modified to change the 3 risers to 4 risers. But, you know, if we want to go through it section by section, we can do that. I mean, we don't want to rush something through, or if you want to just go over where the new section starts at 106, we can go through that line by line together if you didn't have enough time to review it. However, whatever you feel most comfortable with. I just don't want to call the question if you guys are still reading the proposal. So I guess maybe somebody just give me a sign. Do you want to read it some more? Do you want me to call the question? Do you want to discuss it more? I would like to hear from you guys. Robert? Oh.
I think I've gotten through the majority of it to feel comfortable at the moment.
Okay. All right. Anything that jumps out you that you want to ask for clarification on real quick, or we have plenty of time? Austin, David, everybody good? David's good. Mark, I see a wave. Casey's shaking his head. All right. Well, I just want you to feel like you were okay. Who was that? Robert?
Oh, sorry, no.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't want to rush it, but if nobody wants me to give more time, we'll sure call the question. Right now, the motion is for as modified with the one change for 3 risers to 4 risers. Seeing no other discussion, last call. Seeing no other discussion, I'll call the question. All right, all those in favor of item number 21 for as modified, please raise your hand. All right, and that is a vote of 8. All those opposed? 1. And those abstaining? All right, so it looks like that passes with a vote for as modified with a vote of 8-1 and 0 abstentions. All right, I will note those modifications and we will move on to item number 22. Item number 22 is Michaela again. Michaela, do you want to go over this last proposal? Is Michaela here?
Yeah, thank you for
Oh,
pointing it. So this proposal is recommending adding a definition of non-separated, continuous, and open access path to the IRC. The definition is a continuous and unobstructed path of vertical and horizontal egress travel that is not closed off by doors, contains a minimum clear width of 48 inches at openings, and the standard width of a corridor or a stair. The reason why this proposal is being made is this definition will be utilized in IRC administration provision that does not have to come to committee for vote. That provision is really to put into code language that is currently in a building code policy related to what is considered a complete and independent dwelling unit. This building, and it's a joint building and zoning code policy that is utilized to help us as reviewers, as the city, and as our applicants that are coming in to identify when we will consider something one dwelling unit or 2 dwelling units in one structure. We do not penalize applicants for having multiple full kitchens, multiple full egress. But once we do identify that somebody has all of the components of a dwelling unit in 2 separate spaces, we require them to have this non-separated, continuous, and open access path between them. So really it's operating as one dwelling unit rather than 2 separate dwelling units. It is essential for us to have this policy and these definitions because Denver is very progressive in allowing accessory dwelling units in an attached structure. So that's the zoning definition. So really that ends up being a 2 dwelling unit per the building code. We also are progressive in allowing short-term rentals. So this policy definition facilitates those uses in IRC structures, but also gives us the provisions and restrictions necessary to identify when something is now either 1 dwelling unit or 2 dwelling units, and we need to review it as, for example, a 2 dwelling unit that now needs fire separation. I think I touched on everything. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. I have a question for you. You can see that I've highlighted the word "and." Is it truly that this only applies if you have a vertical and horizontal egress travel together? Or is there the possibility that you have vertical or horizontal, or that there's the possibility you have vertical and or? I just want to make sure that this is worded correctly.
Yeah, it can be and or.
And or, okay, perfect. All right, is there anybody from the public wishing to speak to this item? Oh, Glenn, first I'll talk to Glenn. Glenn, go ahead.
Michaela, I have a question. I noticed you referenced the width of corridor, but corridors, are you intending that to be hallway? Hallway is the term utilized in the IRC.
Yes,
And
thank
when you get to
you.
that 3-foot width, it's based under a hallway.
Yep. Great recommendation.
Where at, Glenn?
The third to last word, corridor.
Mm-hmm.
Hallway would be more fitting with the IRC terminology.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm just putting these in here. This does not make them modifications. They're just suggestions. So the committee will discuss them. Okay, anybody from the public wishing to speak to this item? We have 2 people left on the phone over there. Anybody wishing to speak? Okay, committee. Any questions, concerns, discussions, motions? Paul.
Yeah, I do have a question with regarding the 48 inches at openings. So say this is a situation where you come down a stair, you get to the bottom of the stair and you turn, the opening at that point would have to be 48 inches, or is that still applicable to be like a 36-inch opening?
It has to be 48 inches.
Okay.
The intent is really that the minute we leave, the intent is that somebody can't just put a door up. 48 inches is less likely for somebody to just put a door up, close off the space, and really treat a structure as 2 dwelling units instead of 1 as they would be approved for or have a CO for.
Right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else?
Why,
David.
why are we going to 48 inches instead of just the 36-inch? Does that mean like you couldn't have a door on top of your basement stairs?
That is correct. So you can't essentially have everything considered a dwelling unit in your basement and have a door at the top of your stairs and then have a dwelling unit above and say that's 1 dwelling unit. We're saying that you have to have this complete non-separated, continuous, and open access path. So you can either have that open to the width of the stair without a door, or we need at least a 48-inch opening.
Just trying to think of different situations where like the stairs in a room. So when you get to the top of the stair, if there's no door and it's just open to the room, that would be acceptable.
Yep.
Okay. Because
really in that instance, people are utilizing the whole structure, right? It's not closing off a dwelling unit.
I was just thinking of like when my mom lived with us and her TV was so loud, we needed 2 doors between us and her, but she didn't have a separate kitchen or anything. So
right, and that's fine.
Right.
All the components of a dwelling unit.
Okay.
What?
Yeah, just some comparison to help the committee with that concept. When you're looking at natural light and ventilation requirements in section 303 for adjoining rooms, there's a requirement that the opening between the rooms be absolutely no smaller than 25 square feet. And that's the same concept that Michaela in Denver is trying to establish here. The purpose being to make it very inconvenient to simply add a door. So that concept is something that has a precedence in the IRC. Thank you.
Thank you. David, did you have another question? Your hand's just still up. Can I ask Michaela where the non-separated comes from? Is that non-separated in the terms of fire resistance? You know, like you have a non-separated uses, or is that, I mean, like what is, because I'm not finding anything in the definition that speaks to non-separated, so I'm just trying to figure out where that comes from in the title.
Yeah, that is the intent of that that statement right there.
So could they separate it and then it wouldn't apply? I mean, nobody's going to, but I'm just saying, I mean, just wondering
Right.
why non-separated is in there.
You know, it really just adds additional language there to identify what we're getting across here, that it's a non-separated, continuous and open access path. I can see from your point, Shauna, that it may not be a necessary word to include in this definition. I'm happy to hear others' opinions, especially those that have enforced or designed to this standard.
All right, any other committee discussion? Or a motion? I don't think I have one yet. Again, the wording in red is just suggestions that we've made. They're not anything that has been moved as a modification. So committee is at your will. Kate?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this amendment as with the added or changed wording.
With both?
Yep.
As seen in red here?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a motion for as modified with as shown on the screen. Is there a second? Paul, is that a second? Okay. Excellent. I thought we were going to have a 4-0 Casey. Got a K, Paul. Yeah.
I tried to get in there
Thanks. I still had to go first, though, it looks like.
I was just letting you go, just to have it.
Keeping your perfect score going. All right, so we have a motion and a second for as modified by what is seen on the screen here. If there's somebody listening and not able to see the screen, it is to have non-separated continuous open access path definition stating a continuous and unobstructed path of vertical and or horizontal egress travel that is not closed off by doors, contains a minimum clear width of 48 inches at the openings and the standard width of a hallway or stair. Any discussion? All right, then I'll call the question. All those in favor of the proposal number 22 as modified as seen on the screen here, please raise your hand. I see a vote of 8. All those opposed? None. All those abstaining? 1. All right, 8-0-1. The proposal number 22 is passed as modified with a vote of 8-0-1. That brings us to the close of our items. We have heard all of the items that we are to be hearing and voted on them. I personally want to thank the committee for such hard work. That was a lot of proposals we got through. And to everybody who submitted proposals, it takes a lot to get involved in the process and to see it all the way through. It's a lot of hard work. It's the best way to learn the code ever by picking it apart word by word, comma by comma. But it's truly a public process, and I respect Denver for going through such a process because hardly any other jurisdiction in the United States goes through this kind of a thing to allow the public to really have a say-so in their code. So kudos to Denver, kudos to this committee. Thank you, Glenn, for being our subject matter expert. Erica, is anything that you need?
I don't think so. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time on all these hearings and enjoy the beautiful weather.
Yeah, and I guess I would just say that, you know what, if you go back through item number 21 and you find something that comes up that pops out to you because you feel like you didn't have enough time, you can still, you know, go to Eric, go to Denver and say, hey, we heard it, it was approved, but I have this question. They might be willing to bring it up again if, you know, if you find something. And that's probably true about any proposal, but I would just, you know, don't feel like, oh, shoot, we just passed something that I can't say something about now. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to give you back an hour and a half of your time. I appreciate you all so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank
I
you,
go to my
everyone.
granddaughter's soccer